Let us pray. We give thanks to God for the rich heritage of this province as found in our people. We pray that native-born Albertans and those who have come from other places may continue to work together to preserve and enlarge the precious heritage called Alberta. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills.
The Honorable Attorney General, followed by Edmonton Senator.
Mr. Speaker, I request leave to introduce Bill number 18, Personal Property Security Amendment Act 1990. This being a money bill, Her Honor, the Honorable the Lieutenant Governor, having been informed of the contents of this bill, recommends the same to the Assembly. This bill amends the Personal Property Security Act, which was passed in the spring 1988 session and will come into force on October the 1st. The bill responds to many worthwhile suggestions that have been received as a result of extensive public review of the Act and makes improvements through fine-tuning and clarification. In addition, the bill contains amendments to continue the existing Registry Assurance Fund for the payment of claims to persons suffering a loss as a result of errors or omissions of the registry.
The Honorable Attorney General has moved first reading of Bill 18, Personal Property Security Amendment Act 1990. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 18, Personal Property Security Amendment Act 1990, introduced by the Honorable Mr. Rostad, is now read a first time.
Edmonton Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased today to introduce for first reading Bill number 276, Institute of Healthcare Ethics Act. Mr. Speaker, life and death decisions, organ transplants, genetic technology, and the allocation of precious resources are but a few of the dilemmas facing increasing numbers of Albertans in a complex and challenging healthcare field. This bill would establish an interdisciplinary body that would provide a framework for investigating these vital ethical issues, as well as to serve as a province-wide resource for health professionals, for patients and their families, for the media, for legislators, and for all who are affected by the values involved in making difficult healthcare decisions. Thank you.
The member for Edmonton Centre has moved first reading of Bill 276, Institute of Healthcare Ethics Act. Those members in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 276, Institute of Healthcare Ethics Act, introduced by the Honorable Member, Reverend Mr. Roberts, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife.
Mr. Speaker, in response to motion for return number 201, I've worked on arrangement. I appreciate the Honourable Member for Jasper Place. He's agreed that because of the large volume of information and the problem with reproduction of photographs, that only one copy of the wildlife habitat reports be tabled, and this information will be put in the library.
Just to check, this is 201 for this year, not 223 for 1989.
Mr. Speaker, it's 201 that I believe it is.
Well, we'll take this under consideration for a moment or two, please, because the numbers do not check with the ones that the chair has at the moment. We'll come back to this item. Sorry. Thank you, Minister of Economic Development and Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to table with the Assembly my response to question number 147, which was accepted some days ago, and also the response to number 215, which is going to be accepted today.
Well, no, I'm sorry. The last response comes back. Please, the last one will have to wait till later. Sorry. Thank you for the efficiency. Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to table the third triennial report of the Alberta Heritage Foundation for Medical Research entitled On the Edge of Discovery.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to table the annual report for the Department of Municipal Affairs 1988-89.
Ken. Okay. Clerk.
Introduction of special guests.
Thank you. Member for Edmonton Avonmore, followed by Highwood.
Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to members of this Assembly 26 students from Mayanox Elementary School. They are accompanied by their teacher, David Fairfield, and a parent, Mrs. Lynn Laidler. They are seated in the public gallery. I would ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Highwood.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you and through you to the Assembly former Mayor of Taber. He's now a constituent of Highwood. He's in the Members Gallery, Mr. George Meyer, owner and managing editor of the High River Times and a member of the High River Hospital Board. I'd ask him to rise and accept the warm traditional welcome of the Assembly.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Occupational Health and Safety and Workers' Compensation Board. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Minister tabled his so-called report into lead poisonings of workers and their families in Medicine Hat. And the report says, and I quote, that no one is showing serious acute symptoms, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is precisely the whitewash that we expected coming from this minister, Mr. Speaker, because nowhere in this report does it mention that 4 months after quitting their jobs, ex-workers still have lead levels in excess of his own department's danger guidelines. Nowhere in the report does it mention that these workers are still under physician's care, some still too sick to work, Mr. Speaker, and some still receiving WCB benefits. Mr. Speaker, at least one of the ex-workers has been told by his physician that only time will tell how much permanent damage his kidney and liver have received as a result of the lead poisoning. My question to the minister, how does this minister justify tabling this one-term report that is absolutely silent, I stress absolutely silent, on the long-term chronic effects these workers and their families will probably suffer?
Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member would take time to read that report and if he would look under further action. This is an interim report, and let me read again. Health staff from Occupation Health and Safety will be following up on blood level results to make sure all workers return to an acceptable level. And that's ongoing, Mr. Speaker. We have the doctor in Occupation Health and Safety monitoring this, and when we have further results, I will so advise the members of the House.
Mr. Speaker, that's precisely the point. This minister's hid, whitewashed, ran around, didn't tell the truth to us here in the Assembly, and he had to come back to this Assembly to admit that, Mr. Speaker. And ex-workers are still suffering effects. As I've already mentioned, the two school-age Gauchi children are undergoing tests to determine that learning disabilities that they may have as a result of the exposure to the lead. And I want to ask this minister who came back with this glowing report yesterday, I want to ask him this. Can the minister say and tell the truth to this Assembly that there will be no one suffering serious long-term effects from the lead poisoning?
Oh, come on.
Mr. Speaker, I resent the fact that I have not told the truth or lied to this House, and I want the honourable member to bring that proof forward. Mr. Speaker, I have complied with all the information I have at hand. And Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the doctors, both in Medicine Hat and the doctors in our department, will let us know what the long-term effects of these people will be.
Mr. Speaker, frankly, I could give two hoots what this minister resents. I resent what you've done to the workers in this province, Mr. Speaker. My question is, saying this to this minister, this report is full of half-truths, and he knows it, and it doesn't solve the problems. Will this minister now do the honorable thing and order a complete public, objective, and comprehensive review into what happened in Medicine Hat so that this thing doesn't happen again in the future, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, another accusation of half-truth. Now, I'd like the honourable member to present to me his facts on what are half-truths. Mr. Speaker, as I've mentioned before, we are reviewing and will continue to review and assess all the workers, the families, and the children. And when we have more information from the doctors and from our own department doctors, I will advise the members of this assembly.
Second main question of the leader.
The question was, if Mr. would listen, I'd like to designate my second question to the member from Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand that the provincial treasurer and some of his colleagues will be meeting representatives of the Pro-Canada Network to discuss the goods and services tax. Mr. Speaker, the Alberta wing of the Pro-Canada Network has advised me they've met with 13 Alberta members of Parliament and have told those members of Parliament in no uncertain terms that if they vote for the GST, the network will advise Albertans to vote against them in the next election. Will the provincial treasurer, indeed this government, get serious in opposing this tax by cooperating with the network and adopting this position?
Mr. Speaker, I can assure you the member is mounting at least a credible attempt to try to carve out part of the anti-GST platform. Everyone in Alberta knows that the Alberta government has taken the strongest stand against the GST. While we support the contributions by the Marxist socialists across the way, we know, and Albertans know, that the leadership must come from this government. It has in the past, it has in the future, and we'll continue to maintain that opposition, Mr. Speaker. I do welcome the opportunity of meeting with the Pro-Canada group this afternoon. The chairman of our Economic Caucus Committee will be chairing that, and members of the committee will be there to discuss with them ways in which we can continue this opposition. And I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to express views and to exchange ideas about how that opposition will continue under the leadership of groups like this and the Conservative Party of Alberta.
Mr. Speaker, I understand that recently scheduled meeting between the government and the Alberta Conservative members of Parliament was recently cancelled. Now, Mr. Speaker, if this government's not prepared to put teeth into its so-called opposition to the tax by backing up its rhetoric here, by backing up the rhetoric at election time, and if they're not able to meet with Alberta Tory MPs, Mr. Speaker, then can the provincial treasurer finally reveal to us what other steps he intends to take to help stop the GST before it becomes law?
Good question.
Again, Mr. Speaker, the meeting was canceled by the federal MPs because the socialists across the way were playing games with the votes on Friday afternoon. No doubt about it, Mr. Speaker. It wasn't because there wasn't good intentions. And the kinds of agreements that this House does still hold to, I hope, were broken by the socialists in Ottawa. But that's what happened, Mr. Speaker. Now the member from Mountain View talks about positions. Well, I read his brief, Mr. Speaker. I read his position that the leader of the opposition claimed was going to set back the parliamentary committee. Well, first of all, he didn't show up, didn't make the presentation, Mr. Speaker, despite the trumping up of the issue. And as I said before, it's just as well, because when I read the brief finally this morning, it looked like it was written by somebody in grade 3. Now, I don't want to insult those kids in grade 3, Mr. Speaker.
That's right. Thanks a lot. Sometimes it sounds like grade 3 here. Final supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I'm proud that New Democrats are fighting the goods and services tax, and I'm glad that they're representing Canadians' lack of confidence in this government. Mr. Speaker, in his budget address, the provincial treasurer gave very strong indications that Alberta's stabilization claim of $500 million from Ottawa had been linked by his federal Tory cousins to Alberta's stand on the GST. Mr. Speaker, the reason that the Alberta government's done nothing on the GST, or certainly very little, is because they're being intimidated by the federal Conservatives for nearly $500 million.
Mr. Speaker, there is very few things that has intimidated this government, Mr. Speaker. Let me recount the history of our relationships with Ottawa and how we have pushed those centralists back, Mr. Speaker. It's a very clear record, Mr. Speaker, going back some time, including the National Energy Program supported by the Marxist socialists across the way. Mr. Speaker, we'll continue.
Edmonton, Glengarry. No, I'm sorry, Honourable Minister. I'm sorry. Sorry, Edmonton, Glengarry.
Still had another chapter to go. Mr. Speaker, today a press conference was held at the University of Alberta, the students and staff associations meeting together to deplore and to declare war on the fact that financing for post-secondary education in Alberta has fallen so low that it is truly destroying universities, and in particular the University of Alberta. Mr. Speaker, Alberta was once proudly the first in Canada in terms of assistance to full-time students. We've now fallen to 5th position. Equipment is outdated at universities, classes have become unbelievably large, budgets are too tight, and libraries have fallen way behind. In desperation, Mr. Speaker, the students and staff associations have called for public hearings to alert Albertans to their pleas that they need levels of funding restored to previous levels. My questions are to the Minister of Advanced Education. Mr. Speaker, given that Alberta has in the last 3 years fallen from 1st to 5th position in terms of assistance to full-time students, how can the minister continue to tell Albertans, I see your wallet, Jim, you don't believe in wallets. You've got no respect for wallets. You don't believe in fiscal integrity. In fact, I don't think you carry a wallet.
Sure sounds like a concise matter of urgency that needs to be dealt with in question period. What's the question?
I get very excited when I see wallets being flashed in the air. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Minister of Advanced Education is this. How can we assure Albertans that young people are being adequately and properly trained when these levels of assistance have fallen so dramatically?
Mr. Speaker, I'm somewhat taken by the oratory of the Honourable Liberal Leader. He states that allegations have been made. Mr. Speaker, I think I can only refer to the facts in the case. If one looks at the funding of our post-secondary system in Alberta, 29 institutions, for the first time in Alberta's history, we've surpassed $1 billion. That's over a fifth of the total budget that's now before this House. The U of A's share of that is $250 million, Mr. Speaker. In addition, we provide over $10 million for equipment. Now, I recognize that everybody wants more. And yet I've got to come to the conclusion when I look at other institutions such as the University of Toronto, the University of British Columbia, which are often quoted, certainly by the opposition in this House, our funding, Mr. Speaker, relies on a par with them, while at the same time maintaining the second lowest tuition fees in the nation.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable minister is perpetuating a myth that we are somehow the best in Canada. That is not, in fact, correct. If you compare percentages of gross domestic product as applied to the expenditure of monies in the post-secondary area, we are 20% lower, Mr. Minister, than the average of all of the other provinces in Canada.
Shame.
20% lower. Will the minister agree that the priority for post-secondary education has received a lesser priority under his leadership?
Mr. Speaker, I take exception to the question and the inference in the question that 20% less applies to our institutions. I certainly would not agree for one moment that our standards or our quality is any lower. That's a question to put to the Board of Governors of our institution. Mr. Speaker, I certainly have to point out that this government, on behalf of the taxpayers of this province, has committed through the Endowment and Incentive Fund an amount now exceeding $390 million to the post-secondary institutions to enable them to do the very things that the Honourable Leader is talking about.
Mr. Speaker, given that the students and the staff have taken this unprecedented step of having a press conference to say to Albertans that we have to have public hearings to debunk the myth that we're spending all of these monies more so than any other province in Canada, will the minister agree that there is a crisis that has to be met by a program of proper restoration of funding?
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Leader uses terms such as crises and so on. I frankly do not agree for one moment. If the Board of Governors of the U of A and the Honourable Leader, with all respect to the area in which he's been elected, concentrates on the University of Alberta, I point out again, there's some 29 institutions in this province. Last year, over 500,000 adult Albertans had access to our system. I think we have a post-secondary system in place we can be extremely proud of, Mr. Speaker. And for the Honourable Leader to continually point out that we're 20% less than somebody else, I simply say to the Honourable Leader in this Assembly, put your money and your figures up front, and why they weren't debated a week ago Monday in my estimates, I am at a loss to say, Mr. Speaker.
Banff Cochrane.
No cameras here then.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, energy projects in the province of Alberta have a long history of careful environmental review.
Right.
Because of two recent federal court decisions in the Rafferty Alameda and the Old Man Dam, there appears to be a new situation developing where we'll have energy projects susceptible to additional review under the federal ERP process. I know that the energy minister met with his federal and provincial counterparts in my constituency in Kananaskis country yesterday, and I know as well that one of the agenda items was dealing with the issue of the federal ERP guidelines and the fact that federal legislation is contemplated in the not too distant future to deal with a cooperative effort between the federal and the provincial governments to ensure that we have a process that works and gives the provinces an opportunity to be involved. My question is to the Minister of Energy. Would he kindly indicate to the House what initiatives he has brought forward to the Minister of Energy federally and what we can expect in the near future in terms of federal legislation?
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the question from the member for Banff Cochrane. I should say that the member for Banff Cochrane also attended portions of the Energy Ministers Conference in Kananaskis. Mr. Speaker, we met in Kananaskis to deal with one primary issue that had to do with the global warming. But I should say that at Alberta's urging, there was another agenda item that was put on that took up the discussion in the afternoon on Monday, and that was the issue of the environmental assessment and review process that is currently in place by regulation with the federal government. Alberta led the discussion, Mr. Speaker, and stated our position with regard to the EARP process. First, we pointed out that the EARP process, as it is presently designed, is creating somewhat of a chaotic situation across this country with regard to rational and reasonable economic development, particularly as it related to energy. Our recommendation was that the process be reviewed and that as soon as possible the federal government move on new legislation rather than operate by regulation. The second point, Mr. Speaker, we made was that in the consideration of new legislation, we urged that provinces, energy ministers, be advised of the development of this legislation, and that we urged that this legislation be placed on the federal government's agenda for legislation before the summer recess. We encouraged that there be no duplication of process, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased to say that all provinces and territories supported the Alberta position, and Mr. Epp was taking our position back and was advised that this should become a top agenda item for the federal government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Specifically with respect to our natural gas exports, my question is to the Minister of Energy. What is the impact of the EARP process on a very important part of our economy?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I should at the outset say that the provinces, and particularly the province of Alberta, is not in any way attempting to avoid environmental assessment. As a matter of fact, we have welcomed and invited the federal government to participate in the LPAC hearings together with the environmental impact assessment for Oslo. And it's in that spirit of cooperation and respect for jurisdictional issues that we are willing to work with the federal government, Mr. Speaker. And I should point out that our Minister of Federal Intergovernmental Affairs met with the Deputy Prime Minister on this issue. Mr. Speaker, the one area that is in jeopardy with regard to the EARP process is new facilities expansion in Ontario and beyond. And Mr. Speaker, there is at risk 800 million cubic feet a day of natural gas. It is absurd to the extent, Mr. Speaker, that the federal government EARP process would require producers to consider the environmental impact of a pipeline going into the state of New Hampshire. This cannot continue. There has to be some rational thought brought to this new process, Mr. Speaker, and it must be enshrined in legislation, must be consultative in nature, and it must be passed before the summer recess.
Edmonton Millwoods.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Occupational Health and Safety and Workers' Compensation, Albertans have learned in recent weeks that they can't count on this minister and this Conservative government to ensure their health and safety in the workplace. Right. And even after they've been injured now, we can't count on this minister to go to bat for them. And that's demonstrated by the fact that recently pensions have gone up 10%, while the cost of living has gone up about 18% since the last increase in '86. So I want to ask this minister, will he commit himself today to stop with half measures and ensure that those pensions are increased by the full 18% cost of living?
Mr. Speaker, I understand my estimates will be up before the House very shortly, and I think the honourable member has an opportune time to raise that issue there, and I'll give him a full explanation.
Answer the question.
The injured workers of Alberta are not going to accept that kind of an excuse, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member, the rule of anticipation does apply. The opposition parties are well aware of the fact. I'm sorry, it's up tomorrow, and that's well within our general rules of anticipation. Thank you for the arguments back and forth. Millwoods would like to continue with a carefully crafted supplementary.
We'll look forward to that, Mr. Speaker. But in the meantime, if this minister is not prepared to correct past injustices to injured workers and their pensions, will he at least make a commitment then to amend Bill 15, the Workers' Compensation Amendment Act, to ensure that that is a requirement every single year from now on, that there's an increase for the full cost of living to those pensions?
Again, Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member would wait until tomorrow, I will outline the procedures that will be taken by Workers' Compensation Board in full detail.
Is this the second point of order? I thought there was one about 2 minutes ago. Chair recognizes Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Minister of Energy failed to endorse the international resolution calling for 20% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions by the year 2005. Instead, the decision was that each province should do its best within its own boundaries. Since we have seen where, to the Minister of the Environment, since we have seen where consultation leads in the Alberta Pacific case, is the vague and amorphous consultative process on clean air strategy announced last week the best that this government can in fact do, or is it consistent with the only environment policy that this government seems to have, which is delay, delay, delay?
The question is yes, Mr. Speaker, and the answer to the second question is no.
Minister, I asked the Minister of the Environment, Mr. Speaker.
Cat got your tongue? Honourable members should be familiar with Beauchesne. The government determines who answers the question. It doesn't matter who you care to address.
So I guess it's the Premier or the Minister of Energy who's doing the Minister of Environment's job these days. Given the overwhelming risk of delaying on global warming and being wrong, and given that Alberta produces 0.5% of all the CO2 produced in the world, does the Minister of the Environment not believe that he in fact has a particular responsibility to provide leadership on this issue by at least, at a minimum, endorsing the 20% reduction resolution here today?
Mr. Speaker, I not only believe that we have the responsibility to provide leadership, we are providing the leadership. We are providing the leadership. My colleague, the Honourable Minister of Energy, and myself had the pleasure of jointly announcing a clean air strategy for the province. It's a program that is going to involve full consultation with all sectors of Alberta society, and as a result of that consultation, we hope to come forward within a year or so with proposals that are going to be sound, they're going to be reasonable, they're going to be economically sound and environmentally safe.
Highwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question today is to the Minister of Economic Trade and Development. Mr. Speaker, the plight of Nanton Spring Water has been concerned to my constituents for the past several months. I understand that a Toronto-based firm headed by a well-known Liberal, Mr. Jim Coots, has received the favor of the official receiver. My question then to the Minister is, how was this determined that this firm be selected out of the very many firms that were interested in the Nanton Spring Water operation?
Mr. Speaker, these decisions are made by the receiver themselves so that they can accumulate the greatest amount of money possible. We're delighted that the Nanton Water will be continuing, and I know the honourable member is thankful also because he has made consistent, strong representations to see it maintained within the Nanton community.
Okay. The supplementary has been answered.
Has been. Thank you. Member for Edmonton Jasper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of the Environment was scheduled yesterday afternoon to meet with the Alpac investors. We have to assume that the Minister has now been briefed on the new proposal for a Kraft sulfite mill involving leaching with chlorine dioxide and hydrogen peroxide. I mean, otherwise we'd have to assume the Minister is actively avoiding information to avoid answering questions. So I wonder if the Minister now understands that the new Alpac project involves untried, untested, and unknown technology, which therefore cries out for an environmental impact assessment.
Well, I hate to disappoint the honourable member for Edmonton Meadowlark, Mr. Speaker, but I haven't been briefed on any proposal because you know what, Mr. Speaker? There is no proposal. Now, there are some thoughts floating around out there that perhaps a proposal might come forward. Now, if he wants me to do an EIA on an idea, Well, I guess we can crank up an EIA on an idea. Be an interesting exercise.
Well, starting to sound more and more like old MacDonald's farm, but anyway, let's go on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the minister is haunted by ghosts, I can't help him. You'll have to go call the Ghostbusters or something. The minister's mailed out 25,000 copies of the department's mission statement, which says, I quote, "The Alberta government," beauty, isn't it? It says, "The Alberta government requires formal environmental impact assessments for all major developments," quote unquote. Since that statement was circulated, the minister has waived an EIA on the Sunpine Forest products, on the Trochu Tire Factory, on the Procter & Gamble chlorine dioxide generator, and today he's waffling on the ALPAC proposal. I want to know if the minister is prepared to stand up and reaffirm his statement, or is he going to say it's not worth the recycled paper it's written on?
I hope the honourable member for Edmonton Meadowlark, Mr. Speaker, will take the opportunity to frame that very, very significant document, at least the picture, because that's the part he can understand. Mr. Speaker, I've said before and I'll say again, we have not received a proposal. And when we do receive a proposal, if we do receive a proposal, then it will be reviewed at that time. It'll be reviewed carefully, and we will take whatever measures are necessary if and when we receive a proposal. But thus far, we have received no proposal. And I'm sorry we haven't received a proposal, because if I had a proposal, then we would be talking about something real, something that perhaps the honourable member could understand.
Great, thank you. Edmonton Avonmore.
Decaffeinated, well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the minister responsible for women's issues. Yesterday, the minister announced what she termed 11 new initiatives as part of the Alberta Plan for Action for Women, a program intended to enhance women's economic and social equality by promoting women's participation in all areas of Alberta society. According to the minister, the changing role of women in small business has been dramatic over the past 10 years, and most new businesses are launched by women. My question to the minister is, how can the minister say that the programs and services in support of Alberta women entrepreneurs will be enhanced by this new initiative when in fact the budget for that initiative will be reduced by 12% from $103,000 last year to $91,000 for this fiscal year?
Mr. Speaker, I always welcome an opportunity to speak on the many, many things that this government is doing under the leadership of our Premier. And I would refer to our budget address and page, which outlines all of the many things that we are doing. In fact, $130 million of selected programs in support of Alberta's women, which is, of course, a 14% increase this year over last, and a 29% increase in funding for women's programs over the last 2 years. And that, Mr. Speaker, in a very severe fiscal restraint period. That, I should think, shows the commitment that we have. Speaking to entrepreneurship in women, it is true that is one of the major success stories that women in Alberta are evidencing, and my colleague, the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, may very well wish to supplement my answer, because this is his initiative. But we are finding that we can continue counseling and giving help to women to encourage them, because after all of the small businesses that are being started, the success rate after 5 years of those started by women is twice as high as that of those started by men.
Mr. Speaker, to continue is not to enhance. In November of 1989, most of the 194,000 Albertans employed in clerical occupations were women, but many of them did not receive the same kind of treatment as the approximate 10,000 women in the Alberta Public Service, who had their administrative support jobs reclassified and upgraded with resulting increases in wages. By this action, the government appears to have recognized the need for employment equity initiatives to better the economic status of its own employees, but these actions affect only a small portion of Alberta's women and leave more than 40% of women-headed families to live in poverty. I have 2 sentences.
Oh, shut up.
What action is the minister going to take to ensure that these initiatives are adopted by the employers in Alberta's private sector?
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased that the honourable member opposite is pointing to one of the programs that we as a government, as employer, have brought in to help women in need, and I believe is in fact encouraging me to use that as an example for other people in Alberta to follow. And once again, I can say it this way, that the government of Alberta, under the leadership of Premier Getty, is showing the way on a wide range of issues that are supporting women in this province.
Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the throne speeches we had last year, the Department of Tourism was touted as being the big growth industry for the 1990s, promoting a quadrupling of the tourism industry from a $2.5 to a $10 billion industry. And we've seen some interesting proposals under CADA funding that we have had in the past, where we've funded such things like hot tubs and donut tents. And yet in the last week I've been contacted by recreational vehicle dealers and rental agents that they can't get promotional material for the province of Alberta to distribute to their clientele. So my question to the Minister of Tourism is this: does this reflect a new policy direction of this government, or does the Department of Tourism not have sufficient financial resources to help with the promotional material for these dealers and rental agents?
Mr. Speaker, as you know, this government just brought down a budget that will reduce the deficit by $1 billion, and all our departments of government participated in this exercise. One thing we have to remember, Mr. Speaker, is that tourism worldwide is driven by the private sector, and our department is here to serve and work with proponents throughout the province to make that growth become a reality, and government dollars is not totally what you need. If there's a problem we can solve for the member with reference to not obtaining brochures, that we would like to look into that and take his concerns to the department.
Well, I wonder then if the minister could address the concept that was put forward in the throne speeches from last year. How is it that the minister intends to quadruple our tourism industry over the next 10 years when we don't seem to have enough money for the marketing aspects of promoting our wonderful province of Alberta?
Mr. Speaker, the marketing endeavors of the Department of Tourism have been greater than any other province in Western Canada, and we anticipate to increase this year over last year. You have to take into consideration, Mr. Speaker, that last year we put in a new program called Team Tourism for Marketing, and to date over 415 projects have been funded through the Team Tourism program. And along with that, the very successful Community Tourism Action Program was instituted, and between the two of them, along with our regular programs, there's some 990 projects on active files in our department today.
Overbar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to address my question to the Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife. The Manistic Lake Bird Sanctuary was the first sanctuary established in Alberta. Residents in the Clova Bar area and the Camrose constituency are very concerned about the preservation of this pristine environment. An earlier draft of a management plan for that sanctuary received some extensive public input about 2 years ago. As part of the present draft that has been released, there is some suggestion of a public advisory committee. To the Minister, what will be the procedure, the public input process before this plan that's now out in a draft form becomes implemented?
Mr. Speaker, the implementation of the plan is now ready to take place, and the plan, of course, is a public document now. And there will be input from the municipalities and from naturalist groups and fish and game associations and ATV groups, and all of those will have an opportunity, as well as the general public, to review that plan. And I believe that there's a meeting, the first meeting that will take place for a public review of the plan, I believe it takes place the latter part of May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary. There is some urgency due to the growing pressure that's being exerted onto the reserve, the sanctuary, due to ATVs, all-terrain vehicles, and snowmobiles. Will the Minister agree to implement this plan expeditiously, particularly because of the pressure that's being felt in that area right now?
Well, Mr. Speaker, there certainly is some controversy. It falls between the ATV users and the snowmobile users in the area. I believe that they can resolve those differences because we do intend to implement the plan. It's important for the future of the sanctuary. As the member said, it's the oldest sanctuary in the province. It's one that we want to make sure is run properly and can't be run properly without that plan, and it's going to take a little compromising on each side, and hopefully they'll come to a resolution, and because they know clearly that we do intend to implement the plan.
Edmonton Calder.
Mr. Speaker, today a report by Statistics Canada revealed that compared to wealthy people, the poor are twice as likely to die young, poor babies are twice as likely to die, and people who are poor are dying faster from mental illness and suicide. Despite the seriousness of the issue, the Minister of Family and Social Services doesn't care because he is refusing to take any action that would help almost 70,000 people living in poverty on social assistance in this province. To the Minister, given that this Minister has said he is committed to social reform, when will this Minister make a commitment and raise the incomes of people living on social assistance?
Mr. Speaker, I recognize that the member for Edmonton Calder is having a difficult time understanding the complexity of poverty. But let me say this, Mr. Speaker, that this minister does care, and that this government does care, and that we are leading the fight, Mr. Speaker, against poverty, and we'll continue to lead that charge. Mr. Speaker, I want to point out...
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I think we're going to just take a big time out here. We might even end question period if this noise persists. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I was saying, this government is leading the charge against poverty. I would want to point out, Mr. Speaker, that poverty is not something that's unique to Alberta. I guess we can take some consolation in knowing that we have amongst the lowest poverty rate in all of Canada. But we're not willing to leave it at that, Mr. Speaker. We're going to progress ahead, and we're going to work with Albertans, and we're going to continue to address poverty in a meaningful and thoughtful way.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This minister is the one that is having trouble understanding the issue. Mr. Speaker. And in this minister's own city of Red Deer, an average of 50% of the food bank clients receive social assistance. 50% of the people served at that food bank are children, and the use of the food bank increased 90% in January of this year. Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious issue, and I would ask the minister, why is he refusing to admit that it's a serious issue and take some action?
Mr. Speaker, again, the minister recognizes, and this government recognizes, the seriousness of poverty. And as I said earlier, we as a government are leading the charge against poverty. And let me just outline, for the benefit of the member, Mr. Speaker, because I know
I know they have a difficult time going through the budget and seeing the things that it's providing for Albertans today, but I would want to point out some of the things that we have done as a government, Mr. Speaker, to fight poverty. And the first thing I'd want to point out, Mr. Speaker, is that we have created 70,000 new jobs for Albertans in this last couple of years. Our budget is projecting another 30,000 new jobs. But, Mr. Speaker, not just jobs, good jobs. We now have the second highest average weekly earnings in all of Canada. Mr. Speaker, we are making some progress, but again, a very complex issue. It's not something that this government can stand up and wave a wand or put an end to. It's not something that we as a government can legislate an end to. It's something, Mr. Speaker, that this government recognizes, and I know that they don't like consultation. They seem to be more interested in knee-jerk reactions. But, Mr. Speaker, we believe in consultation because we're a grassroots party, and we recognize the importance of working with Albertans to address these needs and these challenges. And, Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to consult, and we're going to continue to work with Albertans, and we're going to continue to address the poverty issue in a very meaningful way.
Calgary Buffalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The provincial treasurer, yes, you, has promised, the 15-year veteran has promised for some time to release the full cost of the code inquiry to Alberta taxpayers. It will be the first information he's released for some time. The public accounts provide only some of the information on this matter, including the fact that Mr. Cormie's lawyers were paid over $1,130,000 by taxpayers for their services. Mr. Speaker, it's time for the provincial treasurer to stop hiding and manipulating information and release these figures. And I'm wondering whether he will now stop pussyfooting and tell this House now, and without further delay, how much the code inquiry has cost taxpayers to date.
Might we have unanimous consent to complete this series of questions? Opposed? Provincial Treasurer.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to hear the confession, if not the testimony, by the member from Calgary Buffalo, a lawyer, by the way, that in fact lawyers' fees are very high, Mr. Speaker. In fact, that's been the case all along. We admitted that, Mr. Speaker. We concur with the observation made by the member from Buffalo. Let me indicate that, as the member states, there's nothing that's being hidden. He himself said he found this in the public accounts. Where else do we disclose it, Mr. Speaker, but in the public accounts? The factual information of this government's expenditure, which I filed here sometime just after the opening assembly. And we filed them the year before, by the way, Mr. Speaker, so I appreciate that his research is quite thorough. He's been able to find the public accounts, so that's helpful, and good to see that he's catching on to the assembly. The actual amount that we have spent, Mr. Speaker, I said all along that it would be about $25 million. I've said that in the House in the fall of 1987. I said it in the House in 1988 and 1989, and I'm saying it now again, Mr. Speaker, but these costs are ongoing. The full costs are not yet in, Mr. Speaker. It's going to be around that amount, but I remember the opposition, the Liberal members across the way, clamoring for the investigation, demanding to know what happened, suggesting we had to have an inquiry in this, Mr. Speaker. Well, we did it. We complied. We had one of the fullest, most comprehensive investigations of any problem in this province. We knew it was going to cost money, Mr. Speaker. The conclusions came down, and we acted on them, Mr. Speaker. So we're not hiding anything at all. We're always out in front with respect.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's have the supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's quite clear that the inquiry was needed because the Premier stonewalled and said it was the fault of unsophisticated investors. And I'm wondering whether perhaps the Premier, who is now wincing, can tell this House why his government didn't simply come clean way back in 1987, admit the government's negligence and responsibility to investors, and save the taxpayers of this province that $25 million, which never needed to have been spent.
Mr. Speaker, it's remarkable when we have conducted the most exhaustive, detailed investigation, as the Honourable Provincial Treasurer said, in the history of our province. And having received a report...
Very much, Mr. Premier. Question period is at an end. We have, could we have unanimous consent to revert to the introduction of special guests? Opposed? Public Works Supply and Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and to the members of the Assembly for giving me this opportunity to introduce a group of 123 grade 6 students from Barhead Elementary School. Mr. Speaker, this is virtually the whole population of grade 6 students in the constituency that I represent, and they're sitting in both the members' gallery and the public gallery, and they're accompanied by a number of teachers: Rose McCall, Stephen Perrin, Maureen Tanzoni, Lauren Lamotte, teacher aide Vicky Paperzi. They're also accompanied by 3 bus drivers, Mr. Ed Litke, Bill Chobe, and Bill Britton. And Mr. Speaker, I'm also very proud because there's one young gentleman in one of the 2 galleries that is very close to me. He's my son, Michael. And I would ask all of them if they would kindly rise, and would ask my colleagues to provide them with...
Okay. Point of order, Edmonton Highlands.
Mr. Speaker, you at least implied during question period today that a question was out of order when it was sponsored by the member for Edmonton Mill Woods to the Minister for Occupational Health and Safety, on the assumption that everybody in the House is well aware that the Minister's estimates are up for tomorrow. Now, if you like a B number, I can cite 512 and 513 in particular. But what I'd like to point out in the context is this. Now, I've since had some correspondence, sent some correspondence and received some correspondence from the government House leader. The point I'd like to make is this. Under the anticipation rule, it may be worth exercising a question as opposed to an assumption if it is not clear or a matter of record, or in this case, a matter on the order paper that is well known to all members of the Assembly whether or not a matter is going to arise and on what day. Now, our rules do not require that notice go on the order paper for consideration of any given department's estimates. The rule is an unwritten one, and that is the government House leader advises the opposition House leader, who in turn advises the critics in that caucus. Now, in this instance, I was not advised that workers' comp and occupational health were up for consideration tomorrow. I had been advised that the Department of Education was up for estimates for tomorrow, Mr. Speaker. Under the circumstances, it seems to me that when people object, as I certainly did during the exchange, to say, I didn't know that, and I know that the member for Edmonton Mill Woods expressed similarly that he did not know that there had been a change of plans, that perhaps then the question could be put, if the member has not been informed that those estimates are up for tomorrow, then the question shall proceed. The second argument that I'd like to make, Mr. Speaker, refers to the general rule of anticipation when it comes to estimates, and that is prior rulings from you, sir, which suggested that unless the estimates were up for consideration that day and known to be up for consideration that day, the questions on the matter pertaining to the department under question would not be out of order. Thank you for your consideration.
The difficulty with the rule of anticipation is one which is more strictly enforced, especially the House of Commons in London, where any matter that's on the order paper is then you cannot really be bringing it forward in terms of anticipation for a question period. Now, we, of course, do not interpret our rules as closely as that. And I also am quite aware that under the latest edition of Beauchesne 409 subsection 12, questions should not anticipate a debate scheduled for the day, but should be reserved for the debate. So even at the House of Commons, the practice has been to try to narrow it at least until the day. In terms of what transpired in question period, there was so much heckling going on that when the minister said, no, I'm not going to answer that question today, but I'm willing to do it in estimates tomorrow, that then put a different cast onto what was happening about question period. The minister, any minister has the right to refuse. That's clearly the practice of the House of Commons in London as well as in Ottawa. And in this case, the minister gave the signal to the House that as far as he's concerned, as far as the chair was hearing, that those estimates were coming tomorrow. And that put the House into a bit of a different situation. But I agreed, in terms of anticipation, normally it would be in terms of the day. Anticipation is a rule that's been very difficult to call in all legislatures, including this one. And of course, the other thing that applies here is Standing Order 23E. Okay. Now, during question period today, the Leader of the Opposition made a statement to the House, and perhaps the Leader of the Opposition might be willing to withdraw that statement.
Frankly, Mr. Speaker, I have some difficulty with it when I look at Beauchesne. Clearly, this is parliamentary and been ruled since '58, but also, if I read it into the record, this minister's head whitewashed, ran around, didn't tell the truth to us here in the Assembly, and he came back to this Assembly to admit that. He did have to come back and make a statement to the Assembly, Mr. Speaker. That's a point of fact. It had to do with the showers at the time he said had been installed and they weren't. And he did admit that in the Assembly, Mr. Speaker. So besides Beauchesne in 489, let me look at it here, 490 says not telling the truth has been ruled parliamentary. But I was trying to make the point that this minister's been out of control in terms of what he said to the House, and even he's had to come back and admit that.
Well, Honourable Member, if you look at Beauchesne 489, page 146, it clearly says, since 1958 it has been ruled unparliamentary to use the following expressions: not telling the truth, which is exactly what didn't tell the truth is here in the blues. The other occasion, the minister did come back, and I thought, in the opinion of the chair, was exceedingly candid to the House and admitted that he had inadvertently, I assume, misled the House, and he came back and said so to the House. But the reference here I have is Beauchesne 489. It's clearly unparliamentary.
On 90, if you look at the dates, since the debates from February the 9th, 1970, the citation you're referring to is before that, Mr. Speaker, and I would say that the one I'm referring to is the most recent one in Beauchesne.
That's right.
What's your page number as well as the...
148, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, 148, Mr. Speaker.
Page 148, not telling the truth. All right. Leader of the Opposition, you're entirely correct. By going over one more page, it said it has been ruled parliamentary to say that. All right. The chair would also then admit its ignorance of that page, but would still ask honourable members to refer to Beauchesne 491. Thank you. And which reads, the Speaker has consistently ruled the language used in the House should be temperate and worthy of the place in which it is spoken. Thank you for that lesson, Leader of the Opposition. No, I just agreed with you. Thank you. I don't think it's the best parliamentary procedure, but I have to deal with that. Thank you. Now, we're going to go on to call orders of the day, and we have some procedural problems that have to be dealt with in terms of some tablings.
Mr. Speaker, I apologize for the incorrect number, and hopefully I'll get it right this time. And that in response to motions for